it's important to talk about all these issues in our society to enlighten our people. And I'd like you to start by telling us, what the Holy Book actually preaches when it comes to being tolerant of other religions and, of course, of other people in the world.
Religious tolerance is one topic that Christendom preaches, and it's so important because we get the fact from the scriptures, where, for instance, the Lord tells us if someone slaps you on the right cheek, then you turn the right one.
Is it still applicable?
Of course, but don't try it yet.
Okay.
It's well founded in the scriptures, and we can never, no matter how violent the world becomes, the church can never preach to us picking up arms. Or, of course, the church practices self-defense, but even in your self-defense, you still remember that the dignity of life must be held in higher esteem.
Ustaz, this is becoming more interesting because we have. I was watching a particular interview that's with the former governor of Lagos State, and of course he is a Muslim. The wife is a Christian, and of course they talked about what the scriptures told the individuals now. According to the interviewer, we were asking him that, of course, when the Holy Book, as a Christian, is telling you to not marry an unbeliever, and of course, they also told, the Muslim that don't marry an unbeliever, sort of. And when he was answering the question, it was technical for him, and he said, so whose believer are we actually talking about? And of course, he said, God is bigger than most of the things that we are talking about. I don't know how you see tolerance in Islam, and how Muslims have been able to live, cohabit with other people of other religions, and of course successfully, and some with issues.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity for a beneficial dialogue. In Islam, one thing that is important and fundamental is the fact that the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was sent as a prophet of peace. And throughout his life, he preached peace in all its meaning and what it entails. Perhaps the first issue actually has to do with the level of understanding of the religious leaders about the intersection of religion. When you understand the purpose of religion, religion actually has a purpose. And the purpose of religion is that people should live a life that is responsible and beneficial to the society. Anything short of that is not religion. It could be part of our own interpretation. It could be part of our own aggrandizement. And that is why when you talk about tolerance, we are talking about something that is actually an ingrained part of every religion. I want to go a bit into history. The Prophet, when he migrated to Medina, in Medina there are various multi-faith people there before he joined them. We have the Jews, we have the pagans, we have the Christians in Medina. And Medina is becoming a state. They need to have inclusion of other faith. So the interests of other faith were captured without any form of jeopardy. They gave them the right of their religion. In fact, there was a time the Christians from Nigeria, they came to Medina and they did not find a place where to worship. And the Prophet said, come and worship in my mosque. This is registered in history. So if we have issues today, it is not about religion. It is about those people that actually practicing the religion.
My colleague.
Okay, now back to Reverend Father Anthony Fashola. Lent is seen in some quarters as a church tradition, and of course not biblical, because they believe Lent is rooted in liturgical, Christianity, and that's why Pentecostals believe, fast whenever you want to. You don't really have a designated period where all of us, must, fast, and that Lent is widely observed by Orthodox churches, the Anglicans, the Catholics. Do you share the same view?
Of course not. To start with, the whole of the Christendom observe this period, the 40 days. They might not agree as to the source of the 40 days. The 40 days itself may not make sense to them, probably because they do not understand, probably because they feel like it's rooted more in Catholic tradition. But permit me to also go a little bit into history. In the past, the early Christians, the people that followed immediately after the earthly departure of Jesus Christ, in a bid to celebrate the resurrection, the Easter celebration, they have about 3 days fast to prepare for this great feast of Easter. But after a while, they changed it from 3 days to the 40 days that we have now to celebrate the, number one, the 40 days that Jesus spent in the wilderness in preparation for his public ministry, before he started his public ministry. The number 40 could also be traced to the 40 years that the Israelites spent in their journey through the desert to the promised land, because of the significance of Easter, so 40. 40 could also indicate the number of time that the prophet Elijah was moving around in the wilderness. All of these things after 40 indicate satisfaction. All of these things after 40 days indicate fulfillment. All of these things after 40 days indicate happiness and joy. So that is why the church adopted the number 40. To say, okay, let us make use of the number 40. Of course, if you count it, you will realize that it's almost more than 40, but we have to remove the Sundays. We don't fast on Sundays. The church is picking the number 40, not because it's arbitrary, but it can also be traced back to the scriptures. 40 may not make sense to others, but they are still following it. Now, about the second question is that other denominations, they have other times that they fast, that it doesn't have to be only Lent. Yes, that's true. Also, in the Catholic Church, nobody is saying that you should not fast any other time. But this time around, the church is saying, together with the other members of the Christendom, let us come together to pray, to fast, and to express almsgiving.
Okay, so is it compulsory?
For all of us?
Yeah, yes.
Well, the church recommends that we should fast from age 18 to 59. You should fast. If you have health complications, the church asks that you be excused from fasting. For instance, those who have ulcer, those who have maybe pregnant women, they need nutrition for their baby, the baby in the womb. Those who are sick in the hospital, even if you are within this age bracket, the church excuses you. Of course, as the church is excusing you from fast, she also expects that you practice other things, such as prayer. You should be connected with other members of the Christendom in prayer. You should pray for the country, pray for yourself, pray for your friends, and all that. And then, most importantly, the third one is that you are indisposed, that you are sick, that you are pregnant, that you have ulcer, does not excuse you from practicing charity. These are the 3 arms and dimensions of Lent in the church.
Okay, now, Ustaz, perhaps you should speak more to this. Where does Ramadan teach, about tolerance, patience, and compassion towards people of other faiths?
Okay, well, the first thing is to actually understand why has God legislated Ramadan. If you understand the purpose, then you can move from purpose to understand the interconnectivity. the purpose of fasting is actually to get to higher level of discipline. When we eat, when we dine, it actually limits the power of our soul. If human beings will need to transform to a higher level of spirituality, then they need to discipline the mind. In doing so, you will need to fast. So fasting is a form of spiritual discipline. It is a form of sacrifice. It is not easy to fast. And not everyone that are actually fasting physically, leaving their food, leaving their drinks, are fasting. Because this is a secret between the Creator and the creatures. So until when you understand this perfectly, that is when you can say you are going into Ramadan. Ramadan is a month of fasting. From the dawn to the sunset. So when you are fasting, it is not just fasting by leaving the food. That is, it is not the practice of hunger.
Please let us into what it really should be.
Okay. So Ramadan actually encourages God consciousness. It promotes compassion towards the poor. When you are fasting and you understand how the hunger is beating you, you come to a new realization that, okay, so is this how the poor ones are going through hunger? So it generates an affection of compassion. So another thing is your self-restraint. The Prophet said, when one of you is fasting, then let him be cautious of what he utters. Because if you don't practice self-restraint, then you might be uttering words that would depreciate the value and the reward of your fasting. So in all, if you are able to practice self-restraint, self-control, sacrifice, spiritual reflection, purification, then the world will be a better place for all of us to live.
Do we have people exempted as well, just like Reverend Father said, in Ramadan? And of course, what can they also do? Because I was looking at the similarity, intersection of these two religions. He was talking about the Lent and of course the people exempted. And of course in Ramadan as well, during this period, there are people that might not be able to fast, not because they do not want to, but because they are challenged in one way or the other. So maybe you should expatiate on that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. God is God of wisdom. He created us. He knows everything about us. He is very aware that some people during that period, they will be healed, while others will not have the wherewithal to be able to fast. So there are people that have been exempted divinely. One of them are the aged people. But in Islam, it doesn't have to do with age. Because age is biological. Someone could be 70 and still be healthy, while someone could be in their 30s and still not have the strength. So it has to do with if there is illness confirmed, old age that brings weakness, then when it comes to pregnant women and those who are breastfeeding, the rule is that if they have the strength and confirmed by the medical professional that can fast, they can fast. But if it is confirmed that it will actually affect them or affect the fetus, the baby, then they are also exempted. But they have to practice another thing.
Okay. Which is?
Fidya.
Okay.
Fidya means that they have to make a replacement. By doing what? Feeding a poor fasting soul. So that is where the imperfection comes in. They are exempted, but they have a moral responsibility of giving charity. So charity is also a spiritual purification. So if you are not fasting, then your charity could do the work. If you are exempted divinely, then your charity could do the work.
Okay, Reverend Father, when we look critically into our society of today, Ustaz talked about the fact that the religions are not really the problem, but the people practicing these religions are really with issues. We've seen how we have been using our constitution, for instance, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We see how people create loopholes and, of course, exploit the loopholes for their own benefit. And we've seen that in the religious circles too. You see the people leading us are largely Muslims and Christians, and of course people of other faiths. And you ask yourself, where exactly is the problem? What exactly is the issue? And at the end of the day, it boils down to one thing. They say they are Christians, they are Muslims, and what the Holy Books actually preaches is really something different or something. I don't know how you place the balance, striking a balance now with the people of Nigeria and African origin, and of course practicing these religions, and of course others from above, from different parts of the world, also practicing this particular religion. So please, can you give us the difference between that and why we have a lot of problems on our hands at this point, at this place?
Okay, thank you very much. Like my brother Ravi mentioned, the problem is not so much with the religion in Africa, particularly in western part of this country. You hardly have a family that doesn't have a Muslim brother. You hardly have a family that doesn't have a Christian brother, such that when we have Ileya ceremony, for instance, you see people going to celebrate with their family members. Not necessarily because they are Muslims, but because that is who we are. All right, that's number one. So that means that the problem isn't the religion.
But there are people, there are religious leaders that have tried so much to remove that origin from whatever they do. That's why they call them extremists, in the sense that they don't want to identify with anything that has to do with their background. They don't want the pagan, family members. They don't go to, that's the level of indoctrination that they have attained. And I don't know whether this is actually right, looking at the Bible.
Of course, speaking of religious tolerance, okay, this is their personal thing. Okay, it couldn't have been what the faith taught them.
Okay, not the faith.
No. It couldn't have been what the faith taught them. What the faith teaches us as Christians, I imagine, with my brothers and sisters in Islam, is that we should be accommodating. And the western part of this world teaches us that if we have individuals who don't practice that, it's their personal thing, such that even if they were to be, even if they were not to be Christians, or they were not to be Muslims, even if they were to be traditional worshippers, they would have done that same extreme route. They would have followed that same extreme route or path in the exercise of their religion. So it's a personal thing.
Okay, maybe you try to answer that, which of course has to do with Islam, and largely people talk about Islam, especially when Trump is referring to Muslims now. It's more likely going to say that Muslims are terrorists, almost all Muslims are terrorists, which is of course debatable. I don't know what exactly is happening. The Saudis, when you look at Qatar, look at what they do in their countries, and look at what we do, in this part of the world, and of course look at the northern states, the adoption of Islam, and of course what they do with their people as well. So how do you justify this divide?
Okay, thank you very much. When you look at the history of faith and religion, there are divine principles and guidance. One, in the Quran, Allah says, La ikraha fi din. There must not be any form of compulsion in religion. So faith has to be based on conviction.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with coercion. So if you see anyone going about religion in a way that is very contradictory to the fundamental principle of the owner of that religion, because God is the owner of religion. And one thing about this whole of tolerance is the fact that there is always a shared, universal and common ground of spiritual instinct among the religion. But when it comes to people, we differ in how we want popularity, We differed in the way we want fame, the way we want wealth, followership, and so many other things. So that is why people could use religion as a tool to actually govern people. You know, there is power in the altar. People can use that power to actually enrich themselves. Gives interpretations that makes the followers become an enslaved followers. So what we have today is actually not the faith, but the way we practice the faith. So, and that is why we cannot generalize whatever thing we see on the media. So Muslims, when we say Muslims, we are talking about a dynamic set of people with different background, different ethnicity, different understanding, different level of experience, different level of exposure. So we cannot generalize.
Okay. Okay, I thought you were done.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, there are misconceptions about Islam and extremism. So how does Ramadan counter these narratives?
Okay, thank you very much. Ramadan is a month to actually promote what we call God consciousness. Extremism is a name that does not know religion. When we talk about extremism, it has nothing to do with religion. In everything people do in life, there is a certain element of them that go extreme. So, in Ramadan, what Allah is teaching us is that you must love others, share the blessings with other people. And that is why one thing is paramount when it comes to Ramadan. It is to tell you that the ultimate thing is how God views you. The ultimate thing is the acceptance. So when we look at what we do in Ramadan, people come out to do a lot of charity. But at the end of the day, the deep question is this what God wants to accept from us? So if you don't actually understand and have that guarantee and that assurance, then how will you now want to move into extreme ends with whatever you do? For instance, there are people that will say, I can fast from now till another day, I will not eat. But Islam says no. Take the pre-dawn meal, then when it is time to break your fast, also break your fast. Preserving the health, preserving the dignity. So that is why extremism, and I want to say that and emphasize it, that it has nothing to do with religion. It only has to do with the understanding of people, their ideology, which could not be part of that religion.
Okay, Reverend Father, for enlightenment sake, we know how Ramadan is being observed. So, but for Lent, when Christians meant to break their fast, I know there is no pre-dawn meal like that of Ramadan. When it comes to break or fast, when exactly, or is it any time?
Okay. The traditional time for breaking of fast is 6 o'clock across the Christendom. You remember I mentioned something about certain persons who are not able to. Okay. But just like my brother mentioned, that they might not have the strength to pull through. So some persons, for instance, they could decide to say, well, I'm breaking my fast by 12. I still want to participate. I wish to participate, but I do not have enough strength, sufficient strength to pull through to 6. Probably because, yes, I'm aged, but I still want to participate. All right. Yes, I'm not up to 18, but I still wish to participate. So I'll just break my fast at 12. I mean, we see students who do that. I think I did that when I was in secondary school or something, where we would get our food in our food flasks and we will not eat until break time, which is about 12 o'clock. All right. So there are people who break at 3. There are people who break at 6. But the traditional time that the Christendom expects us to break across the globe is 6 o'clock.
Okay. And we're religious people. Of course, we have Christians, we have Muslims, and maybe traditional religion that to an extent. But some will say that has been not translated into expected developments. There is so much corruption, and we know that Islam frowns at that. Christianity does not also allow that. So is it that people are not internalizing the tenets of this religion, or what's happening?
Well, just like I mentioned, religion would keep saying the right things. Religion would keep preaching the faith, morals, values, the ethical conduct. Religion would keep doing that. It is for the individual to internalize. And of course, we can't force people. One. Two, also because we also understand that sometimes it can take time, moving from, our evil ways to, it could take time. So I believe very strongly that the different religious practices and traditions should not stop preaching the truth. Someday, and of course it's working, whether we like it or not, there are people whose ways of life are transformed as a result of preaching. There are people, even among the politicians, even among the elites, even among the different sectors of life, who are doing so well. Special thanks to their religious values and ethical practices. So that there are few persons does not mean that it's not working. If there are people that are members of different religious traditions and they seem to be bad egg, which is obvious, we'll keep talking to them, keep preaching to them, keep preaching to the world. Someday, the Holy Spirit is going to touch their heart, and it will definitely get better.
Okay, talking about preaching, we have religious leaders from different religions now. And my colleague talked about corruption in the society, and they also say that even the church is not immune to corruption. And of course you start to ask yourself that religious place is a place that you expect maximum discipline, coordination, and of course level of spirituality, where of course you see people doing a lot of things close to what the books are preaching. So how exactly do you want us to move from here, where we have these things, and of course how do we take the message to the people that when you look at where the source of these people coming from, and of course the allegations of corruption, this and that in this religion, and of course how you preach to the larger populace on things they should not do and they should do.
Okay. Thank you very much. My brother mentioned, the other interviewer asked about extremists in Islam, and my brother responded by saying that in almost every human person there is an elastic limit. So go beyond that elastic limit is almost like becoming an extremist. Okay. No doubt, we all are on the social media, we all are in the world, and we read the different instances of religious leaders engaging in religious corruptible practices. No doubt about that. Okay. They themselves, who are practicing it, they are also being preached to. All right. They are being preached to in the sense that, when you preach something, it is, I believe and I know, my faith teaches me that when you preach something, it is God who is asking you to preach it. And He's not asking you to preach only to them, He's asking you to preach to yourself. So you also evaluate. So for those who are religious leaders, who practice corruption and all that, they are also being preached to. They also listen to the word of God themselves.
Okay.
And
they continue. Ustaz, it's interesting you said extremism has nothing to do with any religion. And of course, I would like you, what do you say when you have extremists being profiled largely as Muslims, and what are Muslims doing about it? What are, when they want to talk about if there is any attack in America, for instance, the profiling goes thus, Islamic terrorists, and those things have stereotypical, they're stereotyping the religion, and it has its own effect on the media. They say they use the media to actually, they have an agenda sort of, but of course if that is the labeling they are given to extremists, what are Muslims doing about it?
No, thank you very much. I love that area. You see, the first thing that we need to understand is the fact that there are a lot of narratives in the world, and when it comes to perpetrating a lot of things, there is the issue of propaganda, and also in Islam there is a tool for verification. Before you come out to label any faith, whether Islam, Christianity, or other faiths of the world, you need to do a very critical verification, so that we will not come out to say things today and tomorrow after verification you come out to say that, oh, this is not true. So the issue with social media and media at large is the fact that if they actually have to publicize such content, it will be very difficult to now come back to say, okay, after verification we found out that this is not correct. Islam and Muslims, we need to understand this connection, that we have Islam. Islam is the old religion. That someone is perpetrating an evil does not make them to be someone we can say that is what their religion is teaching them. And we have seen instances where people...
So when they come up with, the terrorists in Nigeria, for instance, in the northern part of the country, where a bit of that we have, terrorism going on, and of course they say, oh, they have said Allahu Akbar, though it's a language, but to every other person that doesn't practice Islam would not understand that it's just a language. But of course, what are the pushbacks really, when we get this as Muslims all over the world, where terrorists would, use the name of Almighty Allah to perpetrate all these evils? What exactly are we expected to do, and what is the word Muslims doing about it?
Yes, I have just said something now that enlightenment is very important.
Okay.
And that is why programs like these, when we're having interfaith dialogue, are well appreciated. You see, people does not know much about the faith. And that is one gap that is also affecting religious tolerance, even in Nigeria here. Muslims, spiritual leaders, religious leaders who are Muslim, does not know much about the Christendom. The Christian leaders also, they don't know much about us. So there is always a gap of mistrust, suspicion. So, and largely what we have today is that even when people use the name of God to perpetrate evil, we still say, oh, we have seen one narrative yesterday, so today it will also be Muslims. What the leaders are doing is the fact that they are doing a lot of enlightenment to transform people to understand that Islam is a religion of peace and it will never perpetrate evil.
Okay.
You can have people who do things that are not part of religion. I want to take a leave. You see, there is an intersection where religion and politics becomes very difficult.
Religion and politics.
There's an interplay. There are a lot of things that are political in nature, but wrapped in the garment of religion. So when there is this dilution, there is going to be a lot of issues. And that is the confusion we are in. A lot of religious leaders, sometimes they are actually being political about their statements, about the way they carry themselves, but because they are religious leaders, we respect them and we don't query them. So until when we get to a level where we can actually ask questions for them, like when we say that we have religious leaders perpetrating evil, it is because our worldview has changed bitterly. Yes, our worldview has changed bitterly. Today people assume the responsibility of religious leadership not because they actually want to transform lives, but because they want followership, they want fame, popularity, they want wealth. So if our worldview is so corrupt, so how do we see the society? What do we tell people when we are materialized and prosperity becomes the order of the day?
I'll come back. Let me allow my colleague to
Ustaz has raised something fundamental. He did talk about the intersection between religion and politics. And I really wanted to speak, to that, Reverend Father. Can religion really be separated, from politics? Because we've had some people believe, religious leaders should not talk about politics, should not endorse any, candidates. Just preach to the people and leave politics out of the altar. And this has become so debatable.
Okay. I wish to say that we are human beings. That's a fact that is indisputable. As human beings, we are political beings. As human beings, we are religious people. And sometimes, in one person, there could be two elements. As religious leaders, it is highly encouraged that we don't dabble into partisan politics.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So that, because our people, they put some level of trust in us, in what we say. So if I dabble into partisan politics, and I say, for instance, this particular candidate is most suitable, most likely, 60%, if not all, let me just be on the safer side, 60% would feel that Father had seen what they didn't see, so they could go for the person. So the church expects that those who go into partisan politics should not dabble into should not be religious leaders. You can encourage people to practice politics. You can encourage people to go into politics so that they can be, light in the midst of the dark world of politics, in quotes. But that a religious leader should emphatically mention that this person is a better candidate, it's not allowed. It's not allowed. So, in that light, I wanted to say also that a religious person being a political person too is not appropriate. Members of the congregation can be politicians, and when they come to church, what they want to hear is the truth. The truth should be told to them without fear or favor. That's another thing. That's another area, because we feel like, okay, maybe a member of my church, a member of my congregation is a member of a politician. So tell the person the truth might result in maybe the person being uncomfortable, the person not coming to my church again, and all that. We shouldn't look at that. What we were called to do as religious leaders is to say the truth, not to dabble into politics, not to engage in partisan politics, but to say the truth to politicians.
Okay, thank you. Now, Ustaz, do you share same views?
Yeah, to a large extent, but as religious leaders, we provide direction in the light of the divine principle. Islam has a whole study about political thought. If you want to go into politics, what are the things you have to know? And the first thing Islam is preaching is that you are not better than the people. You are not superior to them. You are going there to hold a trust. In fact, it is our resources. You are just there as a manager. And one day, you are going to give account. So, you have seen trust, you have seen responsibility, you have seen accountability. So what we have now is that religious leaders themselves, because of the fear of favor, like father said, rightly said, we are corrupt now. Money has become the priority. So everyone now will follow the acquisition of material wealth to the extent that, to say the truth, is becoming so not easy for us. So, and that is why we are going to change things. We'd rather change ourselves. And that's why we have the trainers every time in the religious sphere. We have that training, reorienting people, redirecting them to the fact that leadership is a mantle of trust and accountability.
Okay, I like the fact that you mentioned the need for us to have a redirection, which of course, as we're hosting home, we like to also talk about redirection when it comes to tolerance. But of course, before I engage you on that particular, I want to talk about tolerance with respect to the genders now in the two religions. Women representation in Islam, some still believe that a woman is just supposed to be at the background and not at the forefront of anything. Some still believe that till today. And they are watching us now, and of course I would like you to speak to that truth. What the Holy Books also talked about tolerance, and of course the people in or within the space, especially when Almighty Allah says is equal, you're equal in my presence, so both male and female. So why is it that somebody is put at the background? And I want to speak to that first.
Okay, thank you very much. When we look at Islam preaches gender equity, and not equality.
Exactly.
So we have an interplay of traditional and cultural understanding. Yes, we are Muslims, but we have our cultural background. We are Yoruba people, and in the traditional psychology in which a lot of us were nurtured, it is much like a patriarchal psychology, where the men see themselves as the alpha omega. In fact, in some homes, the woman has no voice. But in Islam, a woman has a voice. Allah gave women a voice to the extent that a woman once complained to the Prophet concerning the husband, libeling her. And a whole chapter of the Quran was revealed because of that event. So who says women have no voice? Who says they should be at the background? What Islam is saying is that you give everything their own due right. So we come to them to discuss. You see, the problem is a lot of things about the religion understanding actually needs a review. The content needs a lot of review when it comes to gender equity. So we thank God that there are a lot of young people, young leaders, young scholars and visionaries who are coming up to change the narrative.
All right, Father, do you have something to say to that?
Well,
women
inclusion in religious principles and values.
Exactly.
Yeah, no doubt. Just like you said, But the only problem we have, and what keeps affecting us as Africans, is our culture, because we live in like a patriarchal. But I think it's getting better. I think it's getting better. People are becoming more involved, more exposed, and even government is trying as much as she can to bring women intentionally, deliberately. The church is bringing women deliberately, even sometimes, because they are used to it. They are used to being at the background. When you invite them to come and take position of authority, sometimes they run back. Because what will my husband say? What will my, But the church is encouraging them to come to the forefront because they can actually do it. And most of the times, when you give a woman position of responsibility, particularly within a religious sect, they do better. Sometimes are men.
Well, Reverend Father, I know the Roman Catholic Church does not ordain women as priests.
No.
The Eastern Orthodox Church also maintains men only priesthood, and some Protestant churches however ordain women as pastors and bishops. So would this change too, or it's a no-go area?
No, it's a no-go area. The church ordains men only because of because of tradition, because 12 apostles were called, right? You remember the scriptures?
Yeah.
And then even when one went astray, they were going to get a replacement. The apostles themselves, they could have just said, well, Jesus is no longer here, he's not watching us. Let's just go on. They could have picked Mary Magdalene, for instance. But they picked another person, Matthias, a male too. They said, let's pick somebody who has been with us from the very beginning, from the moment that Jesus Christ has been preaching among us. And who were they going to pick? A male, Matthias. And church has been maintaining that tradition. Only men, ordination. No women ordination.
So that
Yes,
also speaks volume about what we have in our society, because those are the excuses most of them put forward to justify their position. Women, of excluding women, because they see a replica of that in the holy books. You just give us a practical understanding of that now. But notwithstanding, like you said, he also mentioned there are things are changing, even the roles that are primarily left for men. Maybe one day in the future that will change, maybe not our generation, but of course.
For the ordination in the Catholic Church, for the ordination, it's not going to change. It's not.
It's just going to be.
A
lot of things are changing, remember?
But now it's not going to change. That's number one. Number two is that, women are taking other positions of responsibility. We have, for instance, in Catholic Church, we have offices. We have offices like laity president. We have catechists, for instance. A lady came with me. She's a catechist, and she does a good job. That's like those who assist priests, right? We have CW president, that's like Catholic Women Organization president, which naturally should be a woman because it's for women. We also have other offices that are managed and taken. Oh, of course, don't forget, for us, for instance, we have the sisters, the female religious, like Reverend sisters. We see them, they wear veil. Okay, and they do so well in our hospitals. We have a hospital at Sacred Heart, they do so well. They also manage some of our schools, and they do excellently well. Okay, but when it comes to ordination,
exactly.
No.
So I like that.
Well, our time is fast spent. There is insecurity in Nigeria, and before we say, we've seen Kwara has even been in the news recently. I know that Kwara is close to southwest, and the other time, Trump labeled Nigeria a country of particular concern, and also alleged persecution of Christians. But that's not where I'm going, because our time is almost up. So what roles can religious leaders play in all of this? We'll see more of kinetic measures, fire for fire approach by the government. Even the United States military, they bombed, it was part of Sokoto, the enclaves of the terrorists. I think that was on the eve of Christmas. So by way of away from this kinetic approach, what can religious leaders also do, maybe to help the government in bringing peace?
Yes, I believe that there's going to be that intentional peace, and not the peace in the book or theory. The government needs to actually invest in family. We need to invest in our women education. If we're able to take a family as the foundational rock of the society, and our families are well engraved in God consciousness at the family level, we will get a nation that is very stable. So the role of the religious leader is a very complex one and also very simple. It is for them to direct people to the fact that we are brothers. Dignity of life, sacred entity of life is very important. We must preach in a way that will entrench peace among us and not hatred. Hate speech will not bring about anything good. So we are able to preach to people to be peaceful citizens, to be responsible and beneficial to the society. I can tell you, the society will become a better place for all of us to live. So we need to preach peace, responsibility, and being beneficial. So if we achieve these three, then we can see our religious leaders have actually done well.
Okay, Reverend Father, I think that could be the last remark as far as this show is concerned. So the role of religious leaders in fostering or entrenching peace in Nigeria, particularly the volatile communities or areas.
Well, peace is something that needs to, like they say, peace is not an absence of war. So we could be peaceful on the surface, but You're not peaceful at heart. Okay, so that's, of course, like you said, where the religious just come in. Okay, constant talk and preaching, moments like this of education, relearning, unlearning, like this one that we're having. I imagine that some persons would pick one or two things that they never knew before. So this also could be encouraged where religious leaders are brought, forward to say, come and talk to us about, also family, just like my brother mentioned, family, as realizing the family as a bedrock of civilization, that these people that we talk about, this one bumped that place, this one bumped that place, they came from somewhere. Somebody gave birth to them. It could probably be a disorientation from somewhere. So if we keep evangelizing the family, if we keep educating the family, to get better someday. I'm confident of that.
Okay, thank you so much, Reverend Father Anthony Fashola and Ustaz Abdul Semil Hamza. So thank you so much, and Ramadan Karim once again, and of course, Reverend Father, thank you. So let's have the peace advocate here, that's Sylvia, so you may close the show.
All right, thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful session. I have enjoyed myself. I have learned and relearned some things, and I hope you have also enjoyed the program. Tomorrow will be for Otunwojo, and of course on Friday, New Back will be back. Thank you so much for being a part of the program. Keep watching the People's Steady. Bye for now.